Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Office Vacation. This was maybe 6 to 7 years ago. I was the only full-time IT person at a $100+ million per year in sales company. I worked 55 to 65 hours a week between on-site and at home. I reported to the controller and everything was fine until he quit and they hired the new guy. The new guy was the youngest controller ever hired by our site or any of our sister sites, and man, did he think he had something to prove. The first thing he does is pull me into his office. He informs me that my team will be the first ones in the building and the last ones to go home. I expect you to see you in your office anytime I am in this building. I don't care what you do. Just make sure you are here 7:30 AM to 6 PM. I tried to argue why that was a bad idea. He was having none of it. My response is a collapsed okay, as if I tried to make it a single syllable. Anyone that worked with me knew they were now screwed. I was literally the only guy with the keys to the castle. Literally untouchable. I met with the OSHA lead to see what appliances I could run in my office safely. Unfortunately, no electric kettle. I met with HR and informed them I would be making a spreadsheet of my daily work activities just in case I needed to prove my productivity for any reason in the near future. They thought it was a joke and said okay. Then I set up my second home. Over the course of the next few months, every day I showed up to work at 7:15. Then I went to my office and worked until 3:30. Then I would start my vacation. I brought in a Raspberry Pi and played games, brought in crock pots of food and invited key members in to grace and chit-chat. I also set up a panini press bar and invited all the engineers in for sandwiches. We watched movies, listened to music and ebooks. I also tried to get a dartboard approved by the safety lead, but he said no before I could finish my request. Basically, I did all the things I did at home at the office. People would stop in after 3:30 PM and ask for help, and I would tell them no. Then I would explain what I was told. And I told them to stop in at 7:30 tomorrow, which was a moot point because the site was an 8:30 to 4:30 place. This lasted about 2 months. Then HR called me and we had that meeting. I explained everything. I showed my spreadsheet of work and I included all the times I spent doing zero work and what I was doing to slack off in that time. I was averaging around 35 hours of work a week. Between breaks and lunches, that is normal. They were mad at me and even more mad at the controller because they knew my productivity tanked, and as a byproduct so did multiple departments. I was told to go back to doing what I was doing before he started, and I would start reporting to one of the departments that needed me the most instead of finance. Everyone in the office pieced together that their life got harder for those few months because the new guy deemed it so. He ended up relocating shortly after because no one wanted to work with him. I ended up working more normal work weeks, 45 hours around, and everyone was just happy to have me back to help when they needed it. The next story is called All the Small Reports. My local council received funding to build a segregated cycle route along a road that had seen several cycling fatalities. It's a huge improvement. However, it has become more dangerous again due to at least 50 streetlights being outdotted along its length. There are a lot of shops, parked cars, pedestrians, bus stops and vehicles turning along this road, and you need to be ready to brake at all times. Late one night, a woman dressed in black in one of those unlit areas walked out in front of me. I managed to evade, but fell off my bike into the main road in the process. Everyone was okay, but enough was enough. I tried to report the overall issue to the council, but they said they would need precise location, plotted on a digital map via their clunky website, and streetlight number printed on the light column of every light to report to their subcontractor. The road runs through an area known for muggings, and even cyclists get pushed off to steal their bikes. So I didn't want to stop at each light with a phone out or even a notebook. So since the start of 2022, each trip I've tried to remember 1 or 2 lights that are failed with their precise location and numbers, then reporting when I get home. I had reached 13 individual reports so far this year when a man from the council called me yesterday. We discussed the situation, and upon hearing that there were many more reports yet to come, asked if I could please give them 4 weeks grace before sending more reports. They would check and fix every light along the cycle route. The third story is called Bin Everything. A few months ago, the 2 owners at my company had a huge disagreement, which has escalated to full-blown screaming matches in the middle of the office and nearly into several physical fights. It came to a head last Friday, and owner A decided to pack it all in and leave effective immediately. After lunch, owner B called the warehouse manager up to the office. He pointed at owner A's office, situated just off the main open plan office, and said, "I'm too stressed to deal with this, so I'm going home. Bin everything in that room. I don't want to see a shred of evidence that owner A worked here when I get back on Monday morning." The warehouse manager looked at the offending office and back to owner B. "Are you sure you want to bin everything, boss?" Owner B looked ready to explode already, and apparently this extra bit of clarification sent him over the edge. "Did I stutter? Get rid of everything in there, or you can clear out your desk too." And so owner B stormed off, and our warehouse manager took out his walkie-talkie. He summoned up two of his warehouse staff and relayed the instructions. The warehouse workers questioned it and got the same answer. Yes, absolutely everything. And so they got to work. Owner A's personal effects were put into a box and sealed up to be taken to him by one of the purchasing staff who lived nearby. Everything else was backed up and put into the bins. The paperwork and stationery were boxed up to be shredded and destroyed. Next, the monitor and printer were taken to the bins, followed by the desk and chair. When I left at 4 PM, the warehouse workers were just starting to take down the wall-mounted bookshelves. I would have expected them to stop there. But when I got in this morning, there was nothing in the office. The curtains and blinds are gone, plug sockets and light fittings taken off the walls, leaving exposed wires. The tiles were removed from the ceiling, showing the ductwork and wiring above. The carpet that owner A requested to be put in was torn up, leaving the underlay. Even the door with owner A's nameplate on it was taken off the hinges. It looks like a construction site in there. Owner B came in at 10 this morning, took one look at the bomb site and started screaming his head off. He demanded to see the warehouse manager. He wanted whoever did this to put this right and then get off site as they were fired. If no one owned up, then the whole warehouse shift was fired. Our warehouse manager, never one to give a damn, just peered into the office and said, "You said bin everything, boss. Looks like they did it." And then he walked off. Owner B looked like he was going to burst a vessel. The last story is called Sue Us. This all started in December of last year and just finished last week. I bought a car from one of those buy here and pay here places. I love the car. It's a Mazda 5 from 2014, basically the smallest minivan I have ever seen. Well, on Christmas we drove to some family for dinner and celebration. When we went to leave, the car would not start. We checked everything and found out the horn wasn't even connected. Any fuse that wasn't absolutely needed was simply missing, and the tires were the original tires. Beyond that, we hooked up the computer and it read several errors, but the one getting in the way was the immobilizer. I had never known the van had one. But because we were in the middle of nowhere, AAA couldn't get a tow truck to us with our free membership. So we had to call a tow truck and then submit the bill to AAA after the fact. The family let us borrow their car and the van was towed to our shop. A few days later and the shop calls us and tells us what's wrong. I live in Texas, a single-party consent state, and I record all my calls thanks to an app on my phone. The long list of car issues isn't important. The point of this van is a basic work van. The only issue they found stopping it from running is the immobilizer is active and they can touch it without talking to the dealer. I freeway called the dealership and the shop and we talked for 17 minutes. During this call, the dealership acknowledged we were not behind and everything should be working unless it malfunctioned. The dealership also gave permission for the shop to bypass it and we would be reimbursed for the towing and repairs. All the shop needed to do to get the van running was bypass the immobilizer, and a couple of days later we picked it up and paid the bill. Both bills came to just under $300. So we started calling the dealership. The first few conversations went well and the phone rep seemed interested in helping. But mostly I end up getting tossed around from department to department and then disconnected. That went on for some time and I, of course, took a look to find out options. I kept calling and eventually got to a supervisor, and the first supervisor said he'd get it taken care of and we ended the call. 2 more days went by and I heard nothing back. So I call back, get tossed around and then get another manager who says, "We are not responsible for mechanical issues," and hangs up. I call back, now quite annoyed, and eventually get back to the same manager. I explain I have all the information and call recordings including the repair shop freeway call. He cuts me off and says, "What? Are you going to take us to court over $300? I don't think so, but go ahead and sue. We will win, and if that small amount is worth suing to you, you probably don't have the resources to actually sue." This, of course, made me quite upset. So off I ran to a justice of the peace and explained what has happened. They give us a small claims form and explain the process. We can fill it out and pay for a constable to serve the dealership, or fill out a paper and take it to the dealership unfiled and explain everything to our manager in person. We choose the cheaper route because the manager on the phone was right. We didn't have the money to have it served, only filed. So we transcribed the phone calls and found out how to fill out the paper. The hardest part was finding the agent. We gathered the bills and all the paperwork and made our way to the dealership's payment center. I wait in line and see the name of the manager is the same name as the manager on the phone that told me to sue. I wait in line, and when it's my turn, I ask to talk to John, and he comes over and sits across from me. After making introductions and I confirm it's the same guy, I start to explain the situation again. As I'm explaining, I see that he recalls talking to me on the phone. He starts to dismiss me, and I explain that he asked me to sue and I'm here with all my evidence and the unfixed suit, giving him one final chance. He starts to look over the papers and asks if I still had the recordings. I said yes, I could email him a copy. We sit and talk for about an hour as he reads. And then I told him that if there is no solution today, that I am not going to head right back to the courthouse and file. I will also be tackling on as much as possible for emotional distress and whatever else the clerk hinted at. The clerk was very open-mouthed with ideas. And I would also send a copy of everything to every email on the corporate website. At this, our conversation drew the attention of a woman in a power suit who washes over for a recap. I find out she's John's boss's boss's boss and she's none too happy about how far things have gone. She assured me that all would be made right and gave me her cell number and email. I gave her the papers and left. The next Monday at 8 AM I got a call asking if credit being applied to the account would be acceptable. I say yes, and she explains they will credit $500 to the account as payments. The payments are only $155 every 2 weeks. I agree and we talk for a few minutes. I asked why it took this much just to get things done. She laughed and said, "It shouldn't have, and certain people are no longer employed at the company." And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories in today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.